Chainsaw Man gets it right, and I think in a way a lot of people can enjoy. Doves are the first thing you see in this chapter, specifically two. Doves can represent and symbolize a lot of things. You might typically understand it as peace, love, purity, and new beginnings. However, doves in circumstantial ways can also mean the ending of war. You may think this is an over-exaggeration or an over-interpretation, but the name of this chapter is called Nightjar and Asa. Now, a nightjar is what originally we knew as Yoru, the first bird introduced into the beginning of Chainsaw Man Part 2, a bird that she comes to talk about in this chapter and how she occupied it and tried to understand it. Nightjars have a ton of symbolism in a lot of different ways. They normally represent the supernatural, omens of death, or guardians of departed souls in various cultures. They're also known as ghost birds with a very unique ability of camouflaging, representing the ability to hide or blend in, which is exactly what Yoru is. Originally, we got this mixed up with a different bird called the putu, and the putu symbolism is way more extreme and way more in depth, but we don't have to talk about that because we have a literal confirmation of what bird she actually is. Look at this, a second channel that is a weekly manga podcast, updated Friday, go subscribe, and a free Patreon with exclusive goodies and that podcast 5 days earlier. Become a member. It supports me directly. Also, leave a like and subscribe. Mwah. Fujimoto has used a ton of bird symbolism throughout the story. Bucky, for example, at the beginning of Chainsaw Man Part 2, quite literally being a representation of Asa, a headless chicken now being controlled by a devil. This chapter brings us to a full circle moment, the ending of war. And I want to point out the fact that doves are being utilized to represent the end of war thematically and symbolically. The dialogue in this chapter is superb, but it is framed with the idea of death. What I mean by this is the way Yoru frames her conversation with Asa, perhaps knowing that she is about to die, or at least lose. Within this circumstance, Yoru starts to give in. She starts to talk very openly about her understanding towards guilt and the creatures that she actually inhabits, as well as the difficulty of understanding that guilt and understanding Asa Mitaka. This goes back to understanding Yoru's ability, where the more she is able to understand the guilt of a creature or a being, and the more she tends to fall into that guilt, the stronger the weapons she can create. The thing is, she understands guilt really well, however, not with human creatures. It would seem like what she couldn't comprehend with the bird at the beginning of the story that she body hopped into was that it felt guilty for catching and eating worms, a necessity for survival. She found it to be stupid and arrogant and something foolish. Why feel guilty for something that you have to do? Her understanding of guilt being her biggest drawback, arguably her opposite. Someone that represents the literal embodiment of war, death, and destruction has to be fueled by the utmost guilt towards a singular thing for that thing to be even more powerful. It's ironic that someone so powerful can only be powerful as she can navigate and understand the human-like guilt. The problem is that because she is isolated within herself, the guilt comes across misunderstood. She experiences so much as a devil, such a heightened way to such a massive experience that is so away from human nature, birds, creatures, and other things alike, that whatever guilt falls beside her means absolutely nothing, almost zero. In her own words, she genuinely could not comprehend Asa Mitaka's guilt. And that is a really big revelation for her character, someone that operates on the power structure of guilt. What this means is that human sins, and Asa Mitaka is kind of a direct foil to her. The sins that Asa keeps within her mind that she feels guilty about, Yoru cannot fathom. They are too small. They are absolutely nothing in the eyes of a devil. I think this is incredibly poetic because not only does it take a lot for a devil to even understand human nature, there's two other versions of it where we see it intermingled quite efficiently. Control, for example, was someone that could not see past her own desires. Someone that had a control on everything but could not create equal, neutral, or normal love, a family, to call her own. Denji was a direct foil to her because Control died to her own blindsidedness, because of her own selfish desire to absorb Pochita and misunderstanding what Denji was trying to do. I would say a better example of this is Pochita, someone that can directly understand Denji's emotions inherently well. When you think of Yoru and Pochita, they are kind of in a similar situation, a place where they can navigate the mind, body, soul, spirit, the emotional integrity of the person that they inhibit. Pochita has direct conversations with Denji all the time. Some of them are very interesting, but a lot of them are protective. Pochita has a vital, crucial understanding of how Denji functions, what should be shown to him and what shouldn't be shown to him. A great example of that is the doors that Denji has mentally that close off his trauma, something that was hidden away from him. Whenever Denji gets close to those doors and unraveling his own trauma, Pochita actively points him away from it. This isn't to hurt Denji, but a way for him to navigate it more safely in the future if that is a possibility. Of course, that didn't happen, but Pochita means well with trying to protect Denji's understanding of the world. What would be better to fulfill his dreams and being able to show that on an equal footing? Pochita wants to see Denji's dreams come true, and he will protect him. The only way that he can do that successfully is to understand Denji as a human, as a friend. Yoru is the opposite. She could not do this. And while you get that beautiful relationship building between Asa and Yoru that share so much between each other, that have gone through so many experiences, even now, Yoru could not understand Asa's guilt. Yoru is wired too much into the devil understanding of guilt, and that Asa's fabrication of her own guilt means genuinely nothing. I think it's a beautiful way to bring things full circle, and I think the only reason it's coming out right now is because Yoru thinks she's about to die or lose. Funny enough, this type of conversation I think is very eye-opening for both parties, Asa and Yoru. I think this brings them closer together. It's represented by two birds, funny enough when she says this, two doves flying above Asa's head. Perhaps Asa and Yoru represent both of those birds. Yoru almost nihilistically thinks of it in a way where what could have been if she was able to fly thinking only of happy thoughts. I wonder if that's her frame of reference, that if she was able to be happy and to understand human nature and to understand Asa, things might have gone differently. What might surprise a lot of people is what comes after. Denji doesn't eat Yoru, doesn't erase her, doesn't kill her or do anything. Death means nothing currently. Instead, he feeds her blood, sacrifices an arm for it, and Yoru is confused, wondering why that's even a thing. Denji explains the reason he'd done this is so that Yoru will sleep with him, something that she promised. But I do not think this is the normal way that Denji approaches this conversation. Every time that he mentions his sexuality and trying to sleep with someone, it varies quite often in its importance. I understand people are tired of hearing about it and are annoyed that Denji keeps falling onto this thing, but to be honest, his sexuality and how he views sex in general is incredibly important and crucial to understanding his character, not only with where he comes from and how he's been treated throughout Chainsaw Man Part 1, but because of what he's missing. A big part of understanding himself and a big part of understanding Denji is understanding the type of sexuality that inhibits within him, what it actually means to him, the power of that promise, the power of that connection. Not to go too far on that, but you've seen him make very discerning distinctions between what he finds actually attractive and what is more so family. Power is a very good example of someone that he viewed as a family member, bypassing his own sexual drive and desire, understanding that this felt weird and wrong. For someone that has had a horrifying upbringing filled with trauma and death and abuse, mental and emotional manipulation, someone that has been quite literally stunted mentally and emotionally from growth, someone that is not a normal teenage boy, someone that has not lived a normal life since they were a child, somehow, in the beauty of his development, he has understood the importance of what power meant to him and bypassed his entire sexual desire entirely. What he's doing here with Yoru is using it as a win condition, not a literal thing. So while there is belief in his words and something that he may actually look forward to, he's using it against her. Yoru promised that if he were to eat a powerful devil, that this would actually happen. And to even make that connection, they have to stop fighting, and this can be brought to an end. I don't think you have to go too deeply into this. Again, I understand a lot of people don't like it, but the context of this situation is so different from every other time. Just like the prior time and the time before it, but you also got to understand the experiences that Denji and Yoru have actually had. Funny enough, in this small blip of a moment, it explores a bit of a vulnerability between Denji, Yoru, and Asa. All of them are very vulnerable, and Denji shares a emotional connection to both Yoru and Asa, and I think that needs to be known in a crystal clear way. He doesn't just have feelings for Asa, he has feelings for Yoru as well. And one of the funniest things about Chainsaw Man and Denji and Control and hybrids and devils themselves is that in some way, shape or form they yearn for a human experience. I wouldn't be surprised if the one thing that actually gets under Yoru's skin is genuine love, appreciation, actually seeing her for what she's worth. That in itself might be way too optimistic. I don't expect her to just be head over heels in love with him, but there is moments where it's evolved that way. Not only because of Asa's own feelings flowing into Yoru's mind, but perhaps stuff that she's also felt herself. While this feels climatic, it also feels like the calm before the storm. We still have to figure out death. We still have to figure out Nostradamus' prophecy and how to deal with the resurrection of death. If she gets thrown back up right now, does she awaken instantly? Or is this something that we can avoid entirely? A big thank you to these special Patreon members for supporting me. Leave a like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it, and I'll see y'all later. Mwah.